So, hi, my name is Amanda. I'm the director of Chesapeake Down Syndrome Parent Group. I just wanted to introduce you to my dear friend, Paul Fogle. He was born in Lansing, Michigan in November 1983 with multiple health impairments and disabilities. Paul stays very busy. He opened in November 2016 PF Strategies LLC, which specializes in grant writing, social media management, and disability related training. In his spare time, Paul is active in his church community. In 2015, Paul was elected to the board of directors of the Palmyra Area School District in Pennsylvania. And most recently, Paul was appointed by the Pennsylvania Governor, Tom Wolf, to serve on the Pennsylvania Rehabilitation Council. So we're really grateful that you're here tonight, Paul. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Amanda, and good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I was talking to Amanda before we started, and this is my not the first time I'm doing this, but doing this in this setting with Zoom and everything. So I'll ask for forgiveness before I start if there's any glitches on my end. So with that, I'll uh, I'll get started here. Wanted to just give you a quick rundown of uh, the things we'll be talking about tonight. Um, Amanda covered my bio, and I'll spend a few minutes talking more about myself, even though that might not be what you want to hear. But no, seriously, I'll just be going into some other advocacy things, touch on those for a minute or two, and then we'll talk about the history of disability advocacies. Before the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, and then talk about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then some current topics in disability advocacy. And then if there's questions or other comments at the end, we'll tackle those then. So moving along, just to start, as Amanda was kind of talking about, I have I've I've worked a lot. I live in Pennsylvania. I've worked in different advocacy organizations, centers for independent living, uh, which are nationwide. There's 18 of them in Pennsylvania. I've had a number of jobs throughout those types of agencies. I've done different types of work around intersectionality of disability. I've also done some work with home modifications, and I've also served on a couple of different boards um, that focus and serve people with disabilities. Um, so that's really my grounding. I'm from a family perspective. My mom's a uh, special education special education teacher by training, and my father, he is a minister, but they're both uh, they were both very active in my growing up and making sure that I had an equal and uh, proper education through my public school system. That's a little more about me. So there's a lot to tackle about disability advocacy. And if I could be completely honest with you, I think each one of these topics that we'll tackle tonight, whether it's different people or different laws or anything like that, could be its own presentation. This is just a very broad overview of some things, and it doesn't even touch everything. So just to give you an idea of how much is out there. So I think the best way to start is to talk about some icons, or as I call them, icons in disability advocacy. Um, Unlike other civil rights movements, um, African American civil rights, you might not have heard about these people that I'll talk about tonight. And that's not fault of any one person. It's just how things have kind of been been uh, communicated over the years. So the first person I want to introduce you to is, his name is Ed Roberts. Uh, he is considered to be the father of the independent living movement. And if oh, so and then Ed Roberts went on to work in the federal government as, pardon me, the state of California's government, um, running what is essentially their vocational rehabilitation agency. Um, I can't remember the governor off the top of my head. I believe it was Jerry Brown, but don't quote me on that. It's in the materials that I'll be sending you. Um, so that's Ed Roberts. That's a whole, like I said earlier, that's, we could have a presentation just on his life and his work alone. The next person that was crucial to where we have gotten today in disability advocacy is Justin Dart. Justin was pivotal in the Reagan and Bush years back in the 80s, with advancing disability rights with his wife Yoshiko. They met in their native Japan, her native Japan, pardon me. Justin was the heir, so to speak, of if people remember Tupperware, I guess that's still a thing. His father was a big Tupperware executive over in Asia, and so they were living there. And then around that time, Justin contracted polio, and then he met, like I said, his wife Yoshiko, and they devoted their life to disability advocacy. So Justin worked under Presidents Reagan and Bush, the first one, to work on what became the Americans with Disabilities Act and other disability-related laws and undertakings at that time. And then the third thing here isn't a person, obviously, but one thing that kind of was the big law of the time around when these two men started their work is the Rehab Act of 1973. What you probably know the best out of that law is Section 504, which is it's kind of like the IDEA in terms of school accommodations, but it's more for federally funded programs, as you can see here on the slide. And again, talking about the history of 504 is own its own set of information itself. Was a series of sit-ins in the 70s that brought around the passing and the signature of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. If you Google the longest sit-in in a federal building, it would be the sit-ins of 1973, pardon me, with the Rehab Act. So if you learned any trivia tonight, that would be it. Moving along. So the next big groundbreaking disability law was the Americans with Disabilities Act, which really got going not too long after the Rehab Act was signed and passed and signed into law in the mid-70s. And that's an anti-discrimination law that covers 5 key areas. So employment, government programs, public accommodations, businesses, so like ramps into stores and elevators and that kind of thing. Telecommunications, so think about like TYY and things of that, and other, which has really changed obviously since 1990 when this bill was first signed into law, just because the technology has changed. And then there were some other parts of the ADA law that covered some other things. And in 2008, it was expanded to clarify some things that came along in the 18 years that that it's been passed. And we can answer questions, and I can uh, get more information out about the ADA as well. This picture here, sorry, I should have noted that, is President George H.W. Bush signing the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. To his left is Justin Dart. All to his right in the back is the Reverend Harold Wilkie, who has no hands. And if you see a video or watch a video of the actual signing, Reverend Wilkie actually passes a pen to President Bush with his feet. And don't ask me who the two other people are because I can't remember. So, sorry. The next big thing I wanted to talk to you about when it comes to disability history and advocacy. There's still a group that's functioning today, but the group ADAPT was key in making a lot of changes or enforcing a lot of changes to public access back in the 70s. They've been an intersectional grassroots disability organization since, like I said, mid 70s. They, I believe it was Denver transit system was woefully inaccessible. So a group of people with disabilities got together and they shut down the bus system for a period of time to protest the lack of accessibility to that city's buses. They really pushed for change beyond just, mere tolerance, which unfortunately is something that happens more than a lot of people would like. ADAPT is really and this is something that is even more present today, and we can talk about that then if we have time. But it's really a intersectional and coalitional movement. So it's just not people with physical disabilities. It's just they a lot groups like ADAPT do a lot with the the Conference on Civil Rights and other ethnic groups as well. They've really they've worked very hard to get a seat at the table and just beyond the disability space. They do a lot with anti-institutionalization and institutional discrimination, or as so more or less nursing home transition, getting people out of nursing homes. And then, like I said earlier, with the ADA, they do a lot with the accessibility of public spaces. And there's a link there to more info about ADAPT, which I'll put on the handout that we'll send out here as well. So to kind of wrap it up, and this could be a much longer slide because there's a lot of hot topics, and it seems to change by, if not the month, it's the day. But and with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and there's a lot of questions and concerns about vaccination equity. But even before the pandemic, there have been a lot of issues about healthcare, not only with the Affordable Care Act, but the availability of Medicaid. For instance, if you make, I mean, the waivers that you might be familiar with are obviously Medicaid waivers, but if people make too much money, there's issues regarding whether eligibility for those waivers and other healthcare, um, very crucial things like insurance and other matters. Um, Educational access and inequities. Again, it means something different now with COVID, but just people being segregated in special ed, um, or other things like that. Um, Job accommodations, and then of course intersectionality. There's even within the disability community, there is a lot of stigma from one disability to another, or uh, and again, this could be a whole nother conversation and discussion about different types of disabilities, or even racial divides in the disability community. Um, there, African Americans with disabilities are treated differently than uh, white people with disabilities, and um, so on and so forth. We could talk about that all and long. Like I said, that's a whole other whole other topic. So those are some other hot topics, as I call them. Just some disability rights and advocacy agencies that I wanted to put on your radar. Um, some of these are more generic. There's Centers for Independent Living, uh, type of agency that Ed Roberts uh, founded back in California back in the 70s. I forget how many there are in Maryland, but we can get you a list. They serve people of all ages and all disabilities, and they focus on information and support, information and referral, pardon me, um, peer support, advocacy. They help with transition, um, and other things too. Uh, there's what's called a protection and advocacy organization. In Pennsylvania, it's Disability Rights Pennsylvania. In Maryland, I don't know what it's called, but I'm thinking it's Disability Rights Maryland. Don't quote me on that though.
That's what it
Um,
is. You're right.
okay.
Yep.
Um, and then and I got some of tonight's information specifically on uh, the ADAPT from it's a California-based agency called Disability Rights and Education Defense Fund. And I can send you a link to that. They have a nice breakdown, actually. I was looking at this before I came on tonight. That breaks down IDEA versus 504 versus ADA. So I'll make sure that link gets into the document that I sent off to Amanda here. And then the other one that's actually based in Washington, D.C. is the American Association of People with Disabilities. They do a lot of different work across the nation with advocacy. So